Welcome guys, welcome back to Miko's Corner. Have a great day. Today we're gonna react to a video that a subscriber of mine, recommended weeks ago. I completely forgot about it. Sorry. It was what power does the Queen have in England? Well, here I am. Better late than never. So I hope you like my reaction. If you do like, subscribe, and all that. And yeah, let's see what the Queen has as
Hello, I'm
powers.
Simon Whistler. You're watching the Today I Found Our YouTube channel, and in the video today we're looking at what powers the Queen of England actually has. And just before we get started, I do want to say that this video is brought to you by TunnelBear. TunnelBear is a simple privacy app that makes it easy to enjoy a more open internet. It's available for iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. Start your free trial today at tunnelbear.com/brainfood.
Can you be more vague? It's an app that makes you enjoy your internet better. What the fuck does that mean?
So a short while ago, we put out a video about the fact that Queen Elizabeth II neither needs a passport nor a driving license thanks to a quirk of British law. But what other powers does the Queen of many titles have, and what could she theoretically do if she decided to flex the full might of the authority that she wields?
Go to war.
As it turns out, thanks to the royal prerogative, a terrifying amount if she really felt like it, or at least that's assuming Parliament went by the letter of the law and that the people didn't decide to stage a small revolt. In reality, the Queen rarely exerts even a fraction of the power that she theoretically wields, as it's kept in check by the only person in the UK who can tell her what to do, and that's herself. This is very much a calculated move on her part in order to stay in the good graces of her subjects. She also voluntarily pays her taxes, even though she's not technically obligated to, and that helps with people's opinion of her. Not only
When the Queen pays more taxes than billionaires, that's funny to me. Because that's when you think about it, it's way better to be a billionaire than to be a royal. Because of all if you're a billionaire, because there's so many billionaires out there, now there's like 2,000, 3,000, and it's not that much compared to we're billions. But there's only one Queen. There's only one royal family in England. So all the spotlight is on you if you do something bad. And you need their approval to stay in power. I mean, it's a whole game that must be really exhausting to play. Like, must have been like more fun 500 years ago if you were king. Like, someone talks shit about you. Okay, you talk shit about me. Okay, decapitated, easy.
does she avoid openly flexing her political might, she also tends to keep her opinions outside of the public sphere. As historian Frank Prohaska notes, the real secret of royal influence is saying nothing. And anything the Queen does say publicly is pretty anodyne. The minute a monarch or many of the royals say anything remotely political or opinionated, they alienate people and they lose some power.
Yeah. If you say something, whatever that is, whatever it is, you're gonna alienate one side of the people. Either 10%, 5%, whatever it is. Some guy in a basement will be like, oh my god, I can't believe she said that, and you'll be losing tough.
This silence played a large part in how the British monarchy survived post-World War I when other European royal families didn't. In fact, for nearly 2 decades now, the monarchy has...
all the other royal families after World War I were all, on the losing side, except the Russians, but, they imploded. Italy survived. Austria-Hungary imploded. Germany, the guy abdicated. The Ottoman Empire imploded. Bulgaria survived. Did Croatia survive the First World War? I think so. France didn't have a monarchy by then. But yeah, I mean, and they were on the winning side. Why would they implode? I mean,
regularly had polls run and focus groups put together to keep track of how the general public feels about them and their various actions. They also have on payroll individuals whose job it is to ensure the Queen stays in the public eye and in a way that is most likely to endear her to her subjects. Similar to politicians who rely on the voting public, with each public change she presents, right down to the carrying of a cell phone or not, carefully calculated in terms of the impact it might have.
I want to say something here. I'm going to get political, okay? My thoughts on having a queen or not. The way I see things, I would trust a monarch, a constitutional monarch, because absolute monarchy, it's too much, nowadays. But a constitutional monarch, I would trust him more than any politician out there, because a politician, how did he get into office? By promising things that will he really deliver on? The guy doesn't give a fuck. he'll be out. He has to in 4 years he has to be out there again on the road, and then the last 4 years. I'm talking about America. The last 4 years, the second term, that's when he can like do things. But we already wasted 4 years by doing nothing, and now you have 4 years to do potentially something because you don't really care. But then, do you want to? It's a whole game. It's a political game. So at the end of the day, the common people are fucked. And the reason why I think having a monarch is more trustworthy is because they own the country, technically. You know what I mean? And wouldn't you, like, if you have an apartment that's yours, wouldn't you care for that apartment more than if you lease the apartment? But you have, if even if you fuck up the apartment, if you lease it, you fuck up the whole apartment. Nothing can happen to you. You can't be held accountable. You can't really go to court over it. You have immunity, so to speak.
While this may seem only self-serving, the Queen has a very lengthy track record as an admirable public servant and is also acutely aware that she is a prominent public face representing her subjects, so is keen on avoiding being viewed in a bad light, lest she in turn paints them in a bad light by her actions. As she noted at the tender age of 21 in a speech to the Commonwealth she gave on her birthday, "I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and the service of our great imperial family, to which we all belong." Surprisingly, for many years the full extent of exactly what powers the Queen handed off to the government, but technically retained, weren't publicly known. That is, until 2003, when the government released a partial list of the things it could do on the Queen's behalf. For the most part, the list confirms that the government could do things to save the Queen time, such as issue or revoke passports, which simply wouldn't be a feasible thing to be the sole prerogative of the Crown in a modern society. However, some were actually slightly worried by some of the things she could do, like declare war, which under rules of royal prerogative can be done without consulting Parliament.
Nice.
On top of that, the Queen is totally immune from prosecution and is considered above the law in the UK. And further, as a head of state, she also enjoys diplomatic immunity in any foreign country she happens to visit. As such, she could commit...
That makes sense. You might take, how can you say that? Like, all the diplomats who go to other countries, they have diplomatic immunity, So that's not surprising. That she can't really be held against, in courts. Well, I mean, it would be funny. Like, how can you try the Queen though? Because when the court in Britain starts, doesn't the judge say, we're exercising power in the name of the Queen, and if the Queen is right there, she's like, it's all right, don't exercise the power. Everybody goes home. I don't know how the court works in England. Just it would be funny though. As for declaring war, I mean, it'd be more hilarious than anything. Like, imagine if she's like, Ireland, you've been independent for long enough. I declare war. It would be hilarious. It would be the death of the monarchy. But it would be what a way to go. Declare war on Ireland, dude.
Any crime conceivable anywhere on Earth, at least as the law currently stands,
sorry, the Irish.
No legal consequences for doing so. However, as with everything else, she's generally exceptionally careful to ensure that she doesn't break any laws. Of course, what she does in private is completely her own affair, despite her prominent political position, as she is exempt from freedom of information requests. So, moving on, because technically speaking the people of Britain are not citizens but subjects of the monarch, she could have anyone she wanted arrested and presumably seize their property or land for the Crown. Speaking of which, the Queen owns all of the seabeds around the UK and can commandeer any ship found in British waters for service to the realm. Yeah. Oddly enough, she also has first dibs on any whales that wash up on shore. The Queen could also administer any manner of punishment to an individual who offended or otherwise displeased her.
Some of those, powers, I'd rather like the history, how they came to be, because the declare war and the immunity, it's pretty self-evident. But the whale thing,
Whereas the Crown has prerogative power to keep the peace within the realm. And since she's immune from prosecution, nobody could really do anything if this punishment wasn't entirely within the scope of the law. If the government tried to stop her, the Queen could decimate the British political landscape by dissolving Parliament and appointing anyone she felt like as Prime Minister. This is because it's the Queen's duty to appoint the Prime Minister, and she could, in theory, appoint anyone she wanted to the position, regardless of the way the British public voted in an election. On top of that, in the event the Queen didn't like the outcome of an election, for instance, if she didn't like the replacement Parliament members that were voted in, she could just call for another one using royal prerogative until she got the Parliament she wanted. Not that she'd need to, because if she really wanted, she'd just bring in the army to keep everyone in line. But how does that work? How does she control the army? Well, that's because the Queen is also the commander-in-chief of the entire British military, with every officer, soldier, sailor, and pilot swearing allegiance to the crown and nobody.
I have a caveat here. Oh, no, not a caveat, a question. If the Queen goes mad, are the soldiers more loyal to the Queen than to the country? That's an interesting question. If it really goes, would they really stay with the Queen no matter what? Or would they just be like, hey, she's going great, you know what I mean? But, I don't know. But if they swear no to the Queen...
else. They're not called Her Majesty's Armed Forces for nothing.
Yeah.
Being considered the ultimate authority on all British military matters, the Queen could authorize a nuclear strike on France or make North Korea an ally, as she has the power to declare both war and peace with foreign nations. As for laws, well, technically the Queen can't create new laws, she can only sign them into law after they've been decided upon by Parliament. In fact, her royal assent is required to make the law official after being passed by Parliament in the first place. She could appoint ministers who'd make any laws she wanted a reality and then just sign them into law that way. Beyond royal assent, there's also the Queen's consent, which requires she give her consent before any law that affects the interests of the monarchy can even be discussed at all in Parliament. She actually has used this power before, such as in 1999 when she refused to allow the discussion of a bill that would have given Parliament power to authorize military strikes in Iraq instead of needing her authorization. So, well, that's all on the political side.
I wonder how that went to the public. Because, while on one hand you could say, oh, she's going wild with power, on the other hand, would the people really want to go get involved in Iraq? So, I think the polls, tell me in the comments, British people, tell me in the polls if, was it better, did the Queen get a good approval rating for what she did in 1999, or was she, vilified?
But it doesn't stop here. The Queen technically has a sort of power not only over her subjects' physical beings, but also their souls.
Oh yeah, she's the head of the Church of England.
Well, that's because she's also the head of the Church of England, including having the power to appoint archbishops and power over many other such matters concerning the Church. As for most of these powers that technically allow her to rule with an iron fist, as previously mentioned, the Queen is hesitant to ever use them in such a way that would displease her subjects, and certainly isn't about to disregard their representatives in Parliament. However, these powers still exist for a variety of reasons, including potentially being needed in times of extreme crisis. That said, just because she isn't in the practice of exercising her powers against the will of the people, it doesn't mean she isn't occasionally an active political powerhouse in private. Extremely well respected and known worldwide with the ability to bend the ear of most heads of state, the influence the Queen wields is difficult to quantify, but, as noted in an article discussing why the BBC named the Queen the most powerful woman in the world in their list of 100 most powerful women, Her Majesty's power is more about influence. A discreet nod of the head, a polite word in the ear of a Prime Minister at their weekly meeting, or a strategic patronage of a cause being overlooked by the government is how she can indirectly affect our world without us even knowing.
Yeah.
Well, to conclude,
she does have a lot of power. She's like, because I don't know how people feel about her in England, especially politicians. Do they see her just as, a monarch, or do they really respect her? I think it's more individualistic than anything else. But, she's been a public servant. Technically, if you want to consider the crowd a public servant, especially nowadays, she's more a diplomat than anything else. For 7 years, she's been through how many prime ministers? I mean, she's been in power longer than some prime ministers who were prime minister before they were born. I mean,
the Queen has many powers she could theoretically legally use to her own ends unless her subjects and Parliament simply decided to stage a revolution. However, she generally avoids doing anything overt that might upset her subjects and otherwise simply works in the background, more or less in an advisory role when she feels there is a need. So I really hope you enjoyed that video. Now, if you are interested in protecting your privacy online, well, then you really should have a VPN.
Okay. So guys, I hope you liked my reaction. If you did, like, subscribe and all that, and tell me, what you think about the Queen. I don't know. I think she's alright. I don't really care to be honest, but uh, I watched a video, a TED talk about someone making a. I'm gonna do a reaction to it if you guys want, about making a point that having a constitutional monarchy is better than having a republic, and you know, he made pretty good, somewhat short-sighted points, but he made good points that a lot of countries that went republican, that became a republic, fell into decades of internal coups and strife and military, juntas and all that. And case in point, Brazil, Iraq, Syria, all those were republics. That when they became a republic, the whole government fell apart. Because Brazil was a monarchy, they were an empire, and then the empire fell, and then Brazil was a shithole for a century and a half. I'm sorry, Brazilians, but I'm not hearing good things coming from Brazil. I'm only hearing home invasions and the favelas and extreme poverty. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. Uh, Anyways, I hope you liked my reaction. If you did, all that, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya.